For all of my committee members that are here this morning, I would ask you all if you would to take a few minutes to take a look at the peer report that's before you. Thank you. While we still have members of the committee still reading over the peer report, I would ask Mr. Moran, if you would, to there's a mic in front of you with the push button on it so that we can hear you, and so that those who may be viewing well may be able to hear you as well speak. And also to the members of the body, Senator Chazanal expressed that she couldn't attend the meeting today. Let us all be prayerful for her and her family as she deals with issues related to her husband's health this morning. So please keep her and her family in your prayers this morning as well. But while I have members still reading the report, Mr. Moran, if you would you tell this body a little bit about yourself, and especially why do you feel like your appointment to the Mississippi Parole Board will be beneficial to the state of Mississippi, and explain why you think it will be beneficial to the state of Mississippi?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
As you know, I've been in public service the majority of my adult life. And in the last 12 years, served as in the Senate with many of you here, and with some of the best times that I can ever remember. The honor of being able to serve in this great body. But now, as I undertake this new chapter in my life, you know, I didn't know much about the parole board. Began to look into it and was fortunate enough to be appointed to it by our great governor. And today I sit before you 4 months into it for confirmation. You know, one of the things that I can truthfully say is that I have a tremendous amount more empathy today for the inmates that are in the Mississippi Department of Corrections facilities, having served 4 months. And we've been over, I jotted down about 3,000 cases since January. And goodness knows, with all that my family and I have gone through this past year, I've learned that a lot of times there's a lot more to the story than what you read in the paper. what may be written on the page. Sometimes you have to read between the lines. I especially like the webcast where I can see them, look in their eyes. I can watch them. I can talk to them. And then in times when we have them on teleconference. So, you know, having served these 4 months and the experiences of that is really a tremendous opportunity. And I invite each and every one of you and all the senators to come over at some point and sit with us and see as we go through these case studies. And you'll learn a lot. I know I have. I'm still learning. I work with a really good group. There's some really sharp individuals on there that do a lot of homework. We dig into it and try to find out. I'm old school, like I said, the Paul Harvey of the story. A lot of times there's more to it than what's really on the paper. And but this experience in these last 4 months has really changed me and my mindset and my thoughts. Looking at our correction system, there's a lot that can be done, and the overall issues of what really brings them to this point. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just curious, Mr. Moran, you know, I've been an opponent of criminal justice reform probably, you know, my entire career here. Not to the fact that I just believe that everybody that's in jail should be to walk out. I don't believe that. I think you've heard my story before that I am a victim, but I do believe that there should be second chances for individuals. So my question to you is, based upon law that's already there, are you willing to follow the law, or are you willing to follow the opinion of others who may think that we don't need to be letting individuals out of jail? Or are you that person that's going to follow the law, or will you follow what everyone else has to say?
Definitely follow the law. I'm an independent thinker. And, you know, the vast majority of the people incarcerated today in our state system are there for the main common reason. It's drugs, either directly or indirectly. It's not that they're that bad of an individual. There are some bad individuals in there. Absolutely. We all know that. But the majority of them made a simple mistake at some point when they were younger. They got involved in drugs, got hooked on drugs, and at some point they come before us. And that's when you have to look at the system. Those that are up for parole, and as most of you know, and if not, I'll tell you, we don't, as a board, sit there and say, okay, let's get us a list together and see who we're gonna work on today. MDOC provides us with a list. In other words, on my phone, in my email, excuse me, we already have the list for next week. We know who we're going to see. And then we begin to work those cases and dig into them. But yes, you have to think independently. And as I say, the more minor cases where someone wasn't hurt, they just got caught with drugs, you know, the majority of the people, I'd say a big percentage of the folks there need to be paroled. There's some that may never be paroled. But a lot of them just committed a bad mistake when they were young.
Also, Mr. Moran, would you also agree, serving there for over the last 3 months or 4 months that you've been there, that there's a great deal of individuals who return to the prison system because of they didn't have monies to pay their probation officer, and their probation or parole officer are not telling them that that failure to pay is not a condition of parole, and therefore they don't show up at their meetings because they're afraid that since I don't have the money to pay, I'm not going. And as a result of that, now they're back before you all, or have been, you know, back before you all because they didn't show up, not because of anything else, that they didn't have money. So are you willing to, based upon what you have seen, to communicate that more to the Department of Corrections and to the parole board and to those probation officers that they should be making sure that those individuals are told that not being able to pay me is not a condition for you to come and see your probation officer. All you have to do is just show up, and money shouldn't be an object or to keep people from coming back. Are you willing to make sure that those kind of things are done so that we can try in some way to keep our capacity rate down? Because you know, right now, you know, we're probably at about 20,000 individuals in our correction system, and financially, based upon some of the numbers that I've had done, we really can't support more than about 15 or 16,000 in the state of Mississippi.
Yes, sir. On my desk right now, back at the office, is a stack about this thick. Okay, and we refer to Tuesdays as revocation day. They come before us because their probation has been revoked. The absolute number one cause that they come back to us is that they didn't report to their parole officer. And the absolute number one reason that they didn't is they didn't have the money. And I tell people, the legislature, please look into putting more funding into mental health, drug problems in our institutions, and the reentry program. We have two individuals, same age, two guys, same charge. They're released on the same day. One has support, has family support, has a job that he can go to. The other one basically doesn't have a lot of support, much family. They're put out at a bus station, given $40 with, okay, next month you got to report and you got to pay you $50. So if they don't have a skill, and that's another thing we have to work on, is getting these individual skills to get back into society. The percentage, the odds of this gentleman with support and this gentleman with none is astronomical different. This guy you may never see again. The one with no support has no way of making a living. He has to basically revert back to what got him in prison to start with. Chances are he's coming back to us within a year.
Thank you. I think I done asked enough questions. I'm gonna leave it open to members of my committee. If you all may have any questions to Mr. Ram, please raise your hand and I will identify you. Senator Hill, you're welcome there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Moran, you and I have known each other for a long time. And, you know, some of the things that you're talking about as far as everybody being locked up because of drugs, I'm looking at some statistics. And you may or may not be aware, in January 2014, our prison population was 21,008. By January 2022, that figure had declined by almost a fifth to 16,931. So we've decreased the prison population by a fifth in 10 years. And what I'm also looking at is from 2016 to 2022, violent crime in our state increased by 741%, according to the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. We went from 538 violent crimes a year to 4,529. That's 3,991 more violent crimes and more victims. So I think that it's a misnomer to say that everybody in the state is getting locked up because of drugs, because violent crime has increased since prison reform, since we did correctional reform. Violent crimes have increased, and those stats are coming from the Department of Public Safety. So I just want to reiterate that, you know, look at the stuff on your own. Don't listen to stereotypes. Don't listen to what people say if you're confirmed to this board, because violent crime in this state has skyrocketed in the last 5 or 6 years. So, and especially in the city of Jackson, homicide rate in Jackson has gone up astronomically. So that would be my charge to you if you're confirmed to that board, is to look at the violent crimes and look at how many people that commit violent crimes in the state of Mississippi are already on parole, because it's a significant amount, and some very high profile cases like the Kingston Frazier case. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hill. Any other questions from any other members of the committee? Senator Sparks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a member of the parole board, I'm sure you've already voted on some parole decisions. I have concern. This body has a duty to advise and consent. And some people think that's a rubber stamp, and it's not. I'd like to know, when somebody comes before the parole board and they're eligible for parole, whether we got the 19,200 people locked up right now with a $500 million budget coming our way from DOC that's going to be bigger when the healthcare contract comes through, that we were down to 16.8. I've never been interested in the number of people that are incarcerated. That's up to law enforcement to arrest, to DAs to prosecute, for judges to sentence. My concern is using the tools we have. The first tool that we have is presumptive parole. As a parole board member, how many presumptive parole case files have been given to you to review?
They're beginning to come in now. This is something that MDOC has implemented. The case files, they came over and met with us, and we spent several days, afternoons, going over tweaking things that we wanted to be able to see, you know, that would pop right up. How long they've been there? Have they have any RVRs and so forth? We're actually taking up some cases now that basically are presumptive parole, and it's beginning to work. And these folks, these individuals, as they come before us, that have not had, you know, sometimes someone may be eligible for parole and you get to looking at it and they had 3 or 4 RVRs. Some were violent in there, and we would set them off for 6 months or a year to come back RVR free. A good many of them do it, some don't. So those that follow the rules, we parole them and send them out. But presumptive parole and case files, they are really starting to work them now. Another program that they have instituted that I'm proud of, and I think it's really going to pay dividends, is the academic deal, where now it's amazing. It's startling the amount of inmates that do not have a high school diploma or a GED. So they're working this program now, the academy, to help them get their GED, how to do an interview, help them get job skills. We have a good many of them that are leaving from here and going to Ingalls and going to places to work. So, you know, as we get them more adaptive to get back into our system, in the everyday life and become good citizens, we're less likely to have them to come back. So presumptive parole and the case files are beginning to come forth to us, and we're seeing them.
Well, my concern is, and this may be prior to your time on the board, is I've seen too many denials of parole that says not served enough time. The judge, the DA, the victim, the defendant's attorney, everybody agreed on a sentence, and they knew what the parole eligibility was. And you're my friend, you're my colleague, but this parole business is serious. You voted against the parole bill when you were in the Senate. And I just want to know, are we going to do what's in the law? Because this arbitrary resentencing by the parole board, I'm not talking about rules violations. I get that. You guys got to make that decision, other events. But you mentioned the drug crimes, and that was the majority, or whatever the words you used. Those are the nonviolent crimes that are 25% that people are getting set off, because a methamphetamine possession of less than 2 grams is a 3-year crime. And we've got people that are being locked up. Well, that means they'd be eligible for parole in 8 months, and they're setting them off a year. they're setting them off 6 months. I don't want to see that as a continuation. I'm just, I don't know what else to do other than to ask those hard questions, because we need to know as a committee, I need to know at least how we're going to function going forward, because how we function since I've been in this body is not comfortable as it relates to how the parole board has functioned, particularly around presumptive parole. And the parole board can't read something they don't get. So I want to be very fair. I'm not blaming the parole board, but if we don't do that, then the parole bill we passed is not worth the paper it's written on.
Two examples. We had one a couple of days ago, we had to set aside because we didn't have a complete report on it. But nope, we're not doing this. Send it back, give us our complete report. We had another one, gentleman got there in late November and had a year to serve and was coming before us and already had a serious RVR. We said, okay, 6 months RVR free, come back to us, RVR free, and you'll be ready to go. So we take all of that into consideration. I don't get any pleasure out of setting somebody off a year or holding them. To me, to get back into society and become a legitimate worker and go back to their family, that's the ultimate goal, if they're ready for that.
Okay. I would hope, and when it's a deficiency in a report, certainly the inmate can't control a deficiency in the report. I hope we're not setting them off for a period of time. We're bringing them back as soon as that report's made whole. Okay.
Send it back to them, DOCs, and I would think in the next week or so, we're going to get that complete report. It would not be fair to the inmate or to the system for us to make a judgment on an incomplete report. And that's only one or two that I've seen in the 4 months. We've handled almost 3,000 cases that I've been in on since January 1. We did, I think, the numbers say at 9,146 cases last year. We've done right at 3,000 already this year. We're on track to see about 9,300 or so inmates this year that will come before us. And my goal is to I'd like to see it get back down to 16 and be able to get more people back as productive. But I promise you the reentry program and us, two things. We got to get a handle on drugs in prison. It's unbelievable. And if they came in there on a drug charge and they get in drugs and they get an RVR violation on that, rules violation, then it makes it difficult. So we need to address that, and we have to have them better prepared to go back out into society and get a job and get back. Most of them want to get back to their family and become citizens that they really want to be.
One last thing, as you've read many of these reports from time to time, there's what's called potentially derogatory information. In your report, there's an issue that there's outstanding civil cases, is without asking you any legal conclusion or question. There's multiple cases revolving around, I think, one issue. Are those cases resolved? Are they close to resolution?
And
And I'm not asking you to disclose something legal. Okay.
Yes, they are.
Okay. So are all those cases resolved, civil cases, or they're still pending litigation?
My knowledge, all but one had really good insurance with the company that was shut down. They have stepped up. They're handling those cases, and that company was closed in December of 22.
Thank you.
But that company's still handling.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Moran.
Thank you, Senator Sparks. Is there any other questions by any other members of this committee? If not, I need a motion. Motion to do advise and consent. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye. All opposed? Ayes carry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before, Mr. Mayor, there is, before I will bring this before the full body, I would need a statement of economic interest from you.
About that yesterday, and she went back and looked it up and said there was a 23.
It's 2020.
You're the lady I talked.
We need a 2024. So I need that before this can be brought up before the full Senate body. Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I need another, hold on. Rise and report. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, sir. Thank you for coming.